Right, we'll start R4. So we'll make a start there for this month's planning committee B. We don't have any members of the public here, so we'll skip over the usual preamble about fires, but just a usual reminder about phones and also making sure your microphones are on when you speak. There's a couple of substitutions today. Councillor Wilson has sent apologies, to be replaced by Councillor Clark, and Councillor Baxter has sent apologies and is replaced by Councillor Crawshaw as well. Thanks. We'll move straight into declarations of interest. Item 1. Does anyone any interest to declare? Councillor Waters, please.
Well, technically on the second item, I was the member that called it in, but it's non-prejudicial interest.
Thanks. I don't see any of us, so we'll move to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anyone have any comments on those minutes? No, so that's all fine. And no public participation, so I'll move past that to the first item, which is item 4A, unit 12A on Monks Cross. And we're joined by this one by Lindsay Jenkins as Senior Planning Officer as well.
Thank you, Chair. Just go, because of the nature of the application, it's a very short presentation for this scheme to insert a mezzanine floor within units 12A and 12B at Monks Cross Shopping Park. So screen handily placed behind some of the members. So the site, these two, the unit 12 was previously, I think that whole unit there. It's been subdivided. One part is now JD Sports, and the planning application relates to these two. The unit behind these two bays. Ground floor photograph. So it's this section here. It's the existing layout. So unit 12, which is the JD Sport layout, and then units 12A and 12B, the planning application site that we're looking at now. The not particularly illuminating as proposed layout with mezzanine, because literally all it is a floor plate. So trust me, that shows there's a first floor to be inserted above the existing ground floor level. There's no updates. The report covers all the issues. Lindsay can answer any questions that members may have on the specifics of the scheme. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we don't have any public participation. We'll just take all questions now. So, Councillor Orrell.
Yeah. The highways and parking says there's been a transport assessment by Optima. Was there a traffic count, or because previously when we've had applications for Monks Cross, there's been a parking space count with the number of cars used at a particular time?
That's included in the application and the transport assessment. I think the Optima did use a report from the previous application as a baseline, and then they have from I think the previous unit 12 subdivision, and then they have kind of imparted the gym use in those figures.
Right, okay. Because previously we've had counts done in February when there's very few vehicles around compared to other times of the year, but I don't think it's critical in this for this. It also talks about transport to the site and mentions the park and ride. It doesn't mention the number 20 and the number 12, which also go there, which are in doubt at times as whether they are viable. So one would hope that those two services keep going. And finally, there's nothing on sustainability in the report and how the development would be carried on in a sustainable way.
I don't think our sustainability policies would cover this type of internal alteration, not conversion as such. Because it's not a change of use. It's the internal alterations don't normally require planning permission. So the only reason this requires planning permission was a change to the Planning Act not that long ago, because of the potential for the big floor plate out of town stores to make significant increases in their floor space by putting in mezzanine. So this is why this has this requires permission because it's more than 200 square meters. But yeah, I wouldn't think there's anything in our sustainability policies which would bite on this type of development.
Perhaps something we should consider in the future.
Councillor Bassey, please.
Thank you, Chair. To maybe develop that point first and foremost, I will be asking you in a minute about comparison between this and the city centre, and surely sustainability would include reference to traffic and movement away from the city centre to developments such as this one. But my two questions are really paragraph 2.6 refers to retail study updates, but refers only to September 2014. Is there really no more recent information than that to inform emerging policies on retail?
Yeah, I think that's it. It's 2014 is our retail study update. That's the evidence base to the local plan.
So there's no more recent source of information?
Not that I'm
Okay.
aware of, no.
Thank you. And my second question relates to paragraph 6.1, where reference is made to the fact that proposals for out of centre retailing will only be supported where it has been evidenced that there are no sequentially preferable sites, will not result in significant adverse impact on existing and planned investment in the city centre and other defined centres. So my question there is, how do we have statistics for how many vacant shops there are in the city centre? The total area of vacant shops, and whether there are premises in the city centre with a similar 1,000 square metre footprint that might have been viable when considering the proposals as is set out in 6.1.
So we don't have any figures of vacant premises. What is required in the application for the applicant to do is undertake a sequential test. And that means that they have to go out and look at other sites that might be suitable. And that was included in the application. And the retail hierarchy looks at city centre first, then we have town centre, then edge centre. And from that assessment, there was, in terms of city centre, the two possible units that were highlighted was 8 Davygate, which was 556 square metres, so that's quite small, and St Mary's Square, Coppergate, which was 3,400 square metres, which was too large, and that's under offer as well. But the application would result in 2,100 square metres of floor space for the unit. So that would be what the applicant has looked at, and that has been all addressed in the sequential test.
Okay, thank you. And to make sure I've understood them, our city centre teams and business teams don't independently collect data to understand the potential for vacancies in the city centre in order to inform decisions of this type.
Well, they would have done in formulating the policies, and then for, there might be occasions where where we take the views of the economic development team. We seek the views of the economic development team. In this case, I think we just, because of the nature of the scheme, it's less of vacancy, it's already it's in the shopping park and vacancies. We sought views from strategic planning policy, and they recommended the sequential test in terms of the policy. But as Lindsay says, the sequential test is carried out by the applicant. But on our assessment of it, we went back to them about the Coppergate unit, because that seemed to be something they'd missed, but it was significantly larger than the floor space they were looking at, and they didn't think it was the sort of unit that would be subdividable to meet their particular needs. And when they're looking at the sequential test, they have to be flexible on the type of unit they're looking for. They can't say we're just looking for out of town, so we've discounted the city centre. They can't say that we only want new build. They can't say we need, unless they can justify it, they can't say we need exactly 2,100 square metres. They've got to look up and down. But we think they've done what they need to do and with our knowledge of the city centre and the edge of centre and the district centres, we think they've done what they need to do to eliminate potential more sustainable locations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, councillor Clark.
Thanks, Chair. Just a bit of clarification, really. 5.4 talks a bit about impact assessments not being required because the threshold is under 1,500 square metres, but it's actually just over 2,000 square metres. Just a bit of clarification around that.
The 2,500 is the MPPF national threshold, and the 1,500 is our local threshold. So if we didn't have a local plan that said 1,500, we would be referring to the MPPF 2,500. It's where locally set standards can apply.
Okay, not seeing any other questions, so we'll move on to discussion. And if people would like to make proposals and second it, Councillor Orrell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to support this and propose approval. It's good that an empty unit is going to be used in the area, and it's another facility for local people to use and people beyond, and that there are good transport links to it.
Yeah, Councillor Crawshaw.
Just echo those points and second that proposal.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything else, Councillor Waters?
No, I won't waste everybody's time. Quite happy to vote on that.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands, so we'll move to a vote. If you could take us through the recommendation, please.
The recommendation is the application be approved with the conditions set out on page 16 of the report.
Thank you. Okay. Can I see hands for all those for moving the office recommendation? Yeah, so that is approved unanimously, and we will move on. You want to move now? Thanks. Okay, we'll move on to item 4B, which is 37 Wydale Road. If you could take us through that, please, Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. 37 Wydale Road is a 1990s era detached dwelling house in Osbaldwick. Planning application seeks the change of use from the dwelling house to a house in multiple occupation within Class C4. Hopefully there's a pin dropped on the roof of the property there in the cul-de-sac. You can see the Osbaldwick Link Road just on the top right, which helps helps you orientate where you are for this scheme. Street level photograph of the frontage. Proposed site plan. That, I don't expect you to be able to read the annotation on that. But that shows two car parking spaces to the front, both 5.5 meters by 3 meters. And that area of drive is about 9.4 meters from the front face of the house to the back edge of the footway, and then about 7.9 wide. But at the moment, there is a small grassed area that you could see on that photograph, and the planning officer's bike in the background. Existing floor plans. So this is a 3-bedroom house at the moment, and then proposed floor plans with some subdivision on both floors to meet the requirements of licensing in terms of bedroom sizes. That's the last photograph. There is a printed update in front of you. It's correction to paragraph 1.1, which 1.1 says that it's a 3-bedroom HMO. It's actually a 3-bedroom property at the moment, and the proposal is for a 4-bedroom HMO. I have recommended an additional condition, and that's that the approved house and multiple occupation shall have a maximum of 4 residents. The reason for that rather is because of as you pick out from the report and our discussions we have at most committees about parking spaces for HMOs. So there's 2 spaces shown on the plans. There isn't really space to provide an additional space, which would cover an uplift in the number of residents. Whilst the property as it is probably wouldn't allow for an increase in the number of residents with internal alterations because of the floor spaces of the rooms, it would have permitted development rights. So potentially an extension could be put on, a roof extension could be put on to increase the number of bedrooms. So that condition just means that if the developer landowner chooses to take that course, they would need to come back to us to vary this condition. Then we can look at those sort of extraneous, ancillary, incidental aspects at the time.
Thank you. Again, we don't have any speakers, so I'll take any questions now that people have. Yeah, Councillor Fenton, please.
Thank you, Chair. The report sets out the street and neighbourhood thresholds, which suggests that this development wouldn't tip them over the 10% and 20% limits. But just looking at the comments from Osbaldwick Parish Council, one of their points of objection was that development would break existing policy density thresholds. So I just wondered whether you knew what they were referring to specifically in terms of, is it the 10%, 20%? Was it a comment around there being more HMOs in the area than are perhaps known and recognised in the calculation of the threshold? I just wondered if you knew what policy it is that the parish council is concerned that this development would break.
My recollection from reading the comments in full earlier was that was how it was set out. It didn't suggest that that we'd missed them. I think there were some comments that there were properties to the rear which might be HMOs. So I suppose I'm second guessing here, but it may well be that if you drew a line, a radius 100 meters around the property, then you might get a number of HMOs in that. but our policy is that the 100 metres is drawn from the application site and goes along the street. So there might be a property which is actually very close, which is an HMO, but if by the crow flies, but by the way they walk and the way the street goes, it would be outside of that. So that might be the suggestion, but that's a bit of guesswork.
Yeah, councillor Waters.
Impact and assist, I always make a point of leading the parish council when these applications are discussed that I know will be in front of this committee. But if to properly address this, I'm surprised nobody's considered the impact of the existing HMOs on Wensleydale Drive, in particular for the council tax paying neighbours who live alongside, who will now face another HMO to their rear. There's a 10-bedroomed, in effect, property because 8 and 10 are joined on Wensleydale. 10 bedrooms, 10 cars. That's what neighbours have referred to when they refer to the density, the existing density. But of course, it's not picked up in the figures because of the way it's calculated.
Councillor Melly, please.
Thank you, Chair. Is the driveway wide enough to fit 2 vehicles and still be able to move bins past them?
Yeah, it should be. It's that's the width shown on the. Sorry, to turn 180 degrees, but that width is 7.9 meters across, and those car parking spaces are shown as 3 meters. So they're which is significantly wider than a car. So yeah, there shouldn't be an issue in terms of getting bins and bikes out. I think the photograph shows, well, the photograph shows a car and a camper van. And there's space.
Yeah, councillor Melly again, please.
Are the details of the cycle storage included in the submitted plans, or are they just controlled by condition?
By condition, yes. The plans don't.
I'm just wondering if there's anything on the plans that suggests that there isn't space for storage of more than 4 cycles. Because if lack of cycle storage is one of the reasons given for placing a condition of limiting the number of residents, but the only thing limiting the number of cycles is condition, just wondering how that works. If the condition said that there must be cycle storage for 6 cycles, then the condition saying that there shouldn't be more than 4 occupants because of lack of cycle storage would go away.
It would, but if there's only 4 occupants, we can only really put a condition on saying 4 cycle spaces. I don't think we could put a condition on that ratchets it up for extra residents. Whilst they'd fit in the space, we require a secure, like Sheffield stand, to be installed. So that's what I think the condition.
Yeah, we don't. I just feel if that was the case, then every single time there was a planning application for an HMO, we'd have the same situation. We'd have a condition stipulating there has to be the same number of cycle storage spaces as the number of bedrooms, and then we'd have a condition capping the number of occupants at the number of bedrooms because there's only cycle storage for that number of people. It's just a bit circular and happening with every application.
And we don't tend to. It's more an issue of the cycle storage is perhaps a secondary issue. It's more an issue of the car parking spaces, really. Which I think would be relevant regardless of.
Our policy on parking spaces, is it to do with number of parking spaces per room or number of parking spaces per occupant?
we don't have a policy as such. We have an out-of-date set of standards. So I refer to them as, I think I refer to them as using it as guidance. And that's taken from the 2005 Development Control Local Plan. And that seeks one space per two beds, I think. 2 bedrooms.
Rooms rather than occupants.
But that's a tricky one because the C4 use class expresses occupancy in terms of residence. So we're extrapolating that guidance. It's not a direct fit.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Chair. Well, unfortunately, everything's woefully out of date. That's why I keep pressing for the supplementary planning document to be reviewed in this little impasse with the local plan. But having said that, when it comes to car parking standards, if you put the diagram, the photograph up again of the cul-de-sac, I'd just like somebody to point out, if there's more than 2 cars, where will they actually park? Other than blocking footpaths or other people's driveways. Because in the real world, 4-bedroomed student HMO will generate 4 vehicles.
Both on street parking is the reality on this street, but also the parking policy is for 2 per room. But I imagine other policies.
It may well be that an out-of-date policy that we have to follow says that, but I'm asking in practical, real terms, if there's more than 2 cars associated with that property, where will they park in a street like that? Is it any wonder that neighbours object because they know what's coming?
Is that a question? Was it a question?
It's a question, please. If somebody would like to address it and tell me where the overflow car parking will actually go.
Well, we followed the guidance that we have, and that is for 2 spaces for a 4-occupant, a 4-bedroom HMO, and that can be comfortably accommodated within the site. I'm not aware, I've never come across any parking standards in any authority that I've worked for, which would require a 1-for-1 car parking. And I should imagine that I don't know the answer, the data I've seen is out of date, but there is, I doubt whether there'd be any evidence that all student HMOs have 1 car per occupant. I just wouldn't stand up to assessment, I don't think. The street is wide enough for a car to park and a car to pass, but those properties, these properties here, I think if someone parked directly opposite, that would cause difficulties with them getting in and out. But you know, there is some space on the curbside here for if there were visitors who came by car. But we're applying the policy here in the same way that and the guidance here in the same way that we've applied it anywhere else in the city.
Yeah, and I would just make the point that I don't think every student is guaranteed to bring 1 car per student in their city. And I think lots of other residential properties also have more than 2 cars per house, but we have the same issue there, but we hold the same policy to it. So I think the policy is there as it is, but
the evidence of student car ownership is there on the ground, and it only takes a cursory glance to realise that what we're talking about and policies is utter nonsense. We then go back to what I've said in the past, is that we ought to be putting a condition on for no car tenancy agreements. If the universities have got all these fancy travel plans and we insist on Sheffield cycle stands for cycles, then why aren't we making some effort to see those cycle stands used and a green travel plan actually working?
Okay. I'm just going to say, I don't think, I mean, we've got to take the policy, we've got to make the application as it is with the policies that we've got to hand, but also, yeah, I don't think we'll take it as that being the view of the whole committee, that those are factual comments would be what I'd say. Unless it's a question, we'll move on to discussion, but you can raise the points then, Councillor Waters.
I'll just make one point in discussion then, and then I'll keep quiet. The reason I call these in is for the council tax-paying residents to actually see the process. We all know the issues. Everybody around the area knows the issues. And they see these HMOs being approved month after month after month, and all the adverse effects that go with it. I call these in because I want people to see this process, and I want them to know who is approving this month after month after month, and seeing their communities be destroyed. Thank you.
Thanks. For discussion or?
Yeah, I was going to propose approval, but without the additional condition. I personally, seeing as all conditions we had have to be necessary and reasonable and proportionate and have a policy basis behind them, I don't think that we can adequately prove the necessity of the additional condition of capping the number of residents at 4. The reasons given are to do with car parking, but all we have as weight behind that is out-of-date guidance, which relates to room numbers, not resident numbers, and ensuring there's adequate cycle parking. But we haven't got any evidence that there wouldn't be adequate cycle parking for more occupants. The amount of cycle parking is dictated by condition, not by the application or any restrictions of the property. So personally, I'm happy to approve the application just without that additional condition. So I'd like to propose that, please.
Okay. Councillor Fenton, please.
I'm happy to support the application, but with the additional condition retained. I think the point Gareth made around permitted development and how there could be this. I'm thinking about the context of this property in terms of a fairly tight cul-de-sac. I think a 4-person HMO dwelling, I think, can be accommodated. I think if we do away with the proposed additional condition, and if permitted development rights are pursued, which with the applicant would have been their right to pursue, I think it could have a detrimental impact in terms of issues associated with a larger HMO in a tight residential cul-de-sac. So I'm comfortable with the additional condition as drafted.
Councillor Melly, I'll come to you, Councillor.
In that case, can I ask the committee how they'd feel about, instead of this additional condition, having an additional condition removing permitted development rights? That's not uncommon as a condition.
I will return to it before we make a decision. Yeah, Councillor Vassy, please.
Thank you, Chair. While I have no problem with students per se occupying houses or anything at all, I think some of the points that have been made about traffic, about cars, about parking are well made. I think we need to be clear about where those obstacles lie. We submitted our local plan for approval 6 years ago, and we're still waiting for it. Until it's been approved, we cannot develop and approve special planning documents on HMOs, on environmental sustainability, on energy, on transport, on active travel, on biodiversity, on a whole range of different things. This city is completely stuffed, waiting for national government to approve our local plan. They are behaving completely unreasonably, and it is creating all sorts of problems, of which this is just one. So I wish that to be stated. Given the circumstances we're in, I accept that we can really do no other than move forwards and accept what's proposed, because we do not have the instruments to shape our city ourselves for our collective future. I regret that. But all that being said, I therefore feel I have to be comfortable about approving it.
I mean, yeah, from my point of view I just want you to know, I don't take my comments before as thinking that it's great that we're approving HMOs in parts of Osbaldwick where people are really impacted by this. I think I ditto your comments where we all know that the SPD isn't really where it should be, and there is a lot of work to be done to improve on that, I think, when the opportunity comes up. But in this very specific instance, I don't think that there's anything there to go against it. And actually, compared to other ones that we've had here before, I think this is a more reasonable application in terms of number of rooms and the number of cars. To come back to the big issue on the table, because we haven't had permitted development rights on the table yet, I don't want to look at that as the alternative way to look at it, I don't think. But my personal view would be to just retain the additional condition, because we've used it on lots of other applications before from memory in this kind of wording. But I will happily take a selection of hands as to whether or not you want to retain the additional condition or remove it. So can those who would like to keep the additional condition raise your hands? Okay, so we'll keep that as it is. Oh, sorry, yes.
Can I then second what has been proposed by Councillor Fenton, that we approve with the condition as we have it in front of us?
Yes, thank you. Great. Okay. Well, in that case, Gareth, can you take us through the recommendation, please?
Chair, so the recommendation is that the planning application be approved in accordance with the conditions rather on page 31 of the agenda and the additional condition and the update.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can I see hands for those who are for moving this recommendation? And those who are against? Okay, so that is approved with 2 against. That is the last item on the agenda this evening, so we will finish there. I don't know any other urgent businesses. Yes, Councillor Waters.
Can I just make one little remark under urgent business? The supplementary planning document, HMO.
I think, one second, I don't know if we can't make it under urgent business, but we can finish the meeting if you want to raise it to the group. I think that's fine with me. If we just assume that that's stopped there. Is that okay? Yeah, just stop it there.